mostly from what I've channeled and remote viewed, it is a group of individuals who are fighting to contain the information, fighting to contain the awakening, fighting to suppress the people, fighting to create more fear because they just want control. They don't care about money. Money is something that they've created, right, to control us. And our population is at a certain point where we're uncontrollable. The majority of this group of individuals is reptilian. But I do want to say that not all reptilians are bad, right? We do have good reptilians, just like we have good and bad humans. And they believe that, you know, this planet is rightfully theirs because they're the ones who were here long before humans were. It's prophesized that human beings, right, this hybrid species that we are meant to be here. And the reptilians are free to be here as well, as long as they're okay with the shifting of the energies. And they're not okay with that.
I was kind of refreshing on the last time that we talked, and you hit on a theme that I'd heard from a couple other people, was just that we were at this sort of choice point. And so I thought that we'd just kind of start off with a check-in of like, how are we doing with being at this choice point in history on this planet as a culture? How are we doing?
Yeah, great question to kick it off. We're getting through. I think collectively, I think we're doing all right. We're not failing.
Okay, that's good.
We're not totally A+ing it either. But what's happening right now, so, you know, 2024 to 2028 is this huge cycle. So I've been talking about 2024 as a huge year. And I talked about 2020 as a huge year, long before 2020 happened, right? So this is our next really big cycle that we're entering into. And what we're going to see between 2024 and 2028 is the uprising of the solutions, the uprising of the new earth frequency. And we're going to continue to see that old energy fight back, both individually and collectively. So our ego is screaming right now because what it wants to do is suck us back into that place, right? So anytime we make changes in our life, there's a fear that comes up, right? A really intense fear that prevents us from moving forward. And so this is what's happening collectively. We're moving ahead, and yet that old energy wants to suck us back. So we're going to see a bit of a fight for the next couple of years, but I'm hoping that by the end of 2028, we see more good than bad. We see more new than old. And we're already starting to see a lot of new earth solutions coming about, you know?
Like what?
Like huge organizations that are dedicated to cleaning up the plastic of the ocean. Even like 14-year-old kids who are creating solutions to environmental problems. You know, we've got free energy technology that's finally coming out. We've got solutions.
We do. There's free energy technology actually coming out. Nobody's getting murdered for it right now.
Exactly. So the thing is, these solutions are coming out at such a quantity that the powers that were, is what I call them now, okay, can't keep up. So back in the day, there were one or two guys who basically had the balls to have these solutions and say, hey, I found a solution for cancer. They were killed off every single time. Now, if we have hundreds of people all around the world, all coming out with the same solutions because they understand vibrational frequency, that's what everything comes back to, then we can progress with that because the powers that were do not have the resources to shut down all of the solutions that are coming out. So that's kind of, we're still in the battle, but we're starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're starting to get closer to that end.
The power is in the people. It's in the population. It's not with the one. Are the solutions coming to so many more now because it's in the collective consciousness or in the zeitgeist or in sort of the frequency of the planet? Or is it because of connectivity through social media, through the World Wide Web? What is it that's actually booming this awareness for the solutions on a global level that is undeniable and unstoppable?
Yeah, I think the main thing that's happening is the increasing vibration of the planet. right? We've got a lot of, like, I call it cosmic radiation, probably not the best word, but we're getting these influx, these waves of energy hitting the planet. It's hitting our whole solar system. It's moving throughout the universe. We're also moving, and I'm not an astrophysicist, but our solar system is moving through this photon belt, right? And I think it's a 26,000 year cycle or something like that.
26,000 years.
Yeah. And so the last time we were kind of at the peak of our consciousness was Atlantis and Lemuria, right? And then, the planet fell and we went into the dark ages, and now we're coming back around to it. So there is no denying it. There is no stopping it. It's not just the sentiment of, oh, the light has won. It's like, it's scientific. Like, the energy is not going away anytime soon. So we are in the age of awakening, right? Reawakening. So I think that that's kind of the baseline that's leading people into understanding, how do we create solutions for the whole and not just for the individual? As you mentioned, right? Before, it was so individually driven of, how do I make more money and have more power? And now it's, how do we spread this abundance to the collective and make sure that everyone has access equally to resources and food and water and housing? And
what I'm hearing is, like, there's a lot of good stuff coming along, but there's a lot of still evil forces or ego and negativity. Maybe we could kind of distill down on that. What is that? Like, what is that that's pulling us back? What is it that's challenging us? Is it an entity, a group? Is it, please elaborate on what that is.
Yeah, it's a multitude of things, but mostly from what I've channeled and remote viewed, it is a group of individuals who are fighting to contain the information, fighting to contain the awakening, fighting to suppress the people, fighting to create more fear, because they just want control. They don't care about money. Money is something that they've created, right, to control us. Sure. They care about more control, right? And our population is at a certain point where we're uncontrollable. Yeah. But not only that, the energy that's increasing is helping everyone on the planet awaken, which is further uncontrollable. So what's happening right now with that group in particular is they're scared. They're scared. No, the majority of this group of individuals is reptilian. But I do want to say that not all reptilians are bad, right? We do have good reptilians, just like we have good and bad humans, right? If you want to kind of polarize that, right? Yeah. And they believe that, this planet is rightfully theirs because they're the ones who were here long before humans were. So they feel like they have an ownership over the planet. And I can empathize with that position.
You said the Anunnaki were the ones that told them they couldn't be in power anymore, right? I think the last time we talked, you said maybe it was the Anunnaki left too. It was the Galactic Federation that said, this is the humans' planet. Anunnaki are like, bye. And the reptilians are like, no.
Exactly.
Right? So what does the Galactic Federation have to say about who still owns this planet?
It's prophesized that human beings, right, this hybrid species that we are meant to be here, right? And the reptilians are free to be here as well, as long as they're okay with the shifting of the energies. And they're not okay with that, because what that's doing is it's bringing the power to humanity, to the people, where we just haven't had it since Atlantis and Lemuria. Because of the downfall, like the lower frequency, and then the control of the reptilians. So
the reptilians are of a lower frequency.
Yes.
And so the rise of frequency is not in there. It's not resonant with them, and it's resonant with us. So it essentially creates a bigger divide between us and them.
Exactly.
And is it that they can't tolerate that new frequency, and will they have to end up leaving because they won't be able to exist in it?
Exactly. So what's happening right now is a lot of them are transmuting. So what that means is like, you could also consider death a transmutation, right? Transmuting is just energy moving from one form to another. A lot of the reptilians right now are transmuting into the light. They're actually they're leaving their body and they're crossing. Yeah, they can't handle the frequency.
They can choose it?
Some of them are choosing to leave, yes. A lot of them, without their choice, without their they have free will, but without their choice, they're transmuting because the higher vibration is forcing them out, basically.
So are they then, is it off to another place in the universe? Is it another reality for them, or is it more towards us?
Yeah, so the afterlife for them, the afterlife for every individual incarnated being in the entire universe is the same.
Yeah.
You really just kind of go back to source in a sense, right? So reptilians go there too. And that's where we can have compassion for them and understanding that that is just a soul who chose this body to incarnate into. Period.
To have an experience.
To have an experience, you know? And so a lot of them are leaving. Some of them are staying and fighting. But what's really interesting is a lot of the politicians, celebrities, huge influential individuals who have signed contracts to sell their soul, who are these shape-shifting reptilians. And you have to have compassion for them too, because at the time that they signed those contracts, they didn't really know what they were getting into. But they are either dying suddenly, right? So this is a part of a transmutation, or they can't hold their shape-shifting form anymore because the vibration's getting too high.
We're able to see more too.
So I predict in the next 4 years, the ones who are stubborn enough to stay.
Oh, we're going to see them.
We're going to see them. Do you know
it's not just going to be Adele and Justin Bieber.
Exactly. Remember that girl on the plane video?
Yes.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Oh my God.
So that's a great example of a reptilian who just
was that the Miami thing too?
The Miami thing was something different altogether. Yeah.
We'll talk about that later.
Right. But there's going to be an increasing number of like strange events happening because all that has been hidden will be revealed. Like,
and
this
be
is
some
the
very
great
famous
reveal.
People that will be
shape-shifting, or they all of a sudden just choose to step out of the limelight altogether, or they have a sudden accident or passing or whatnot.
Ooh. Have you been shown anybody or?
A long time ago, I had a vision, and this was back in maybe 2012. Okay.
Whoa.
Yeah. That one day Justin Bieber was going to shapeshift into a giant reptilian on stage in front of hundreds of thousands who all have their phone on him, who capture it. They have suppressed a lot of these sightings.
Really?
Oh my God. Yeah. There's been a lot of celebrity shapeshifter sightings, and they've just shut it all down in the news, media, all that stuff. So in a case like they're on stage and that just happens and they kind of slip their true form, I mean, how do you shut down hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of live streaming?
I mean, unless you got like a Men in Black situation where someone can come in and move back time a little, or
yeah, that's what they've done before, right?
Yeah?
The Men in Black stuff. Yeah. Oh yeah. They swoop right in. That's how they've been able to suppress the truth. I mean, come on.
That's what I was going to ask is suppressing information is what is trying to be done. So I want to know what that information is from your perspective. What is the most critical information that they're trying to make sure that we don't know about or we don't embody? No.
Well, there's a lot, right?
Okay, great. Perfect. We'll be here a while.
I would say the most critical information is the fact that reptilians do exist and they've been ruling stuff. The most critical information that can really wake humanity out of a slumber is exactly who they are.
Yeah.
Right? So that is what they desperately try and suppress. And that is their number one goal. And then, with a lot of the declassified documents and a lot of the, UFO kind of an eye roll footage that's been leaked and stuff, and a lot of the government saying like, this is real. I believe that, they're leaking, they're releasing 1% of what's out there, but they're trying to control the narrative. That's what they're trying to do, because they know that cosmic disclosure is happening. It's not going to happen. It is currently happening. So they want to try and maneuver that. They want to try and control, how that's interpreted.
I find it so funny when people say, very prestigious people will say, I mean, I'm open to it, but where's the proof of aliens? I'm like, I feel like that's what's coming at us all the time. Like, what do you want? Like I feel like everybody's had weird moments in their own lives, but then there's also been so much stuff that's come out in the media, and there's been confirmation, confession through the government and, all kinds of different entities. Yeah, exactly. Like, what do you, like, when you hear people say, where's the proof? What do you think?
I think Google it.
Yeah.
Seriously, because this information isn't being suppressed anymore. This information is being declassified, you know? So if people really want to know, okay, you know, they do exist and governments have said that they exist. There's even been government whistleblowers talking about the Galactic Federation as well, which is pretty mind-blowing. Yeah. Where I've been called crazy for for channeling them. So I think that that's pretty incredible. And for those who are not willing to look in the right places, they're not ready for that sort of truth within themselves, and that's okay too.
Yeah, because
you know,
it's all just a reflection. You know,
it is.
Like we're kind of just we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So if we're not wanting to see the truth out there, it's probably a reflection of not wanting to see the truth inside.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah. And it's only going to be more shocking to them when they do realize, wow, this has been talked about. This has been proven.
What do you think will happen when that's just known? When that is clear, undeniable truth?
I mean, I think we're at that point. We have clear, undeniable truth. I think that the collective population is going to take quite a while to unpack that. Whereas I feel like I'm 2 steps ahead, 3 steps ahead and saying, great, okay, UFOs are real. Aliens are real. Why? Why are they here? Who are they?
Yeah.
No one's asking those questions. We're so caught up in proving it. Right. And it's just like, this is why I roll at
that's great.
The 1940s blip on the screen, UAP video. It's like, guys, come on. So now what? And then, you know, I laughed so hard because just recently the government said something to the effect of, you know, yes, we think the drivers of the spacecraft are of extraterrestrial origin. I mean, they just finally said that, yeah, we think that the individuals who were manning the craft were not of this fantastic. Okay, now why? Why are they here?
That's in fact
Who
fantastic
are they?
question.
What do they want with us? And these are questions that I've been trying to answer, you know, for years.
Because so many people will be like, you know, they'll use an analogy of, we might just be an anthill to some other civilization in the universe, and you don't stop and investigate the anthill. You don't care. So why do they, you know, or some funny analogy like that. Right. So in your experience with your communication with the Federation, with your guides, why are they here?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I first had contact with extraterrestrials back in 2011, that was my first question. I'm like, why would you guys bother with us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We are just like an ant-like species. We're barely figuring out technology,
We're still trying to kill each other.
Yeah, exactly. Over religion and belief. You know, so why are they here? And we might have talked about it last time, but I forget. But I believe, and from what the Galactic Federation has told me, we're an experiment, right? But not just any experiment. We're a prophecy planet.
What?
Yeah. Okay, so a very, very, very long time ago, there was a seer, a mystic, who was a part of the Galactic Federation, who said that she saw this vision of a civilization that was going to be created from many different beings, many different species. So a hybrid civilization that was meant to end the war of all war in the universe. But we don't know it. You know, I really compare it to like Superman, right? And like before Superman knew who he was and the fact that he came from off planet and that he had a mission for humanity. This is us. We have no clue who we are.
It's almost like Neo too, right? Neo had to almost had to believe he wasn't the one to do the thing that needed to be done.
Yes. Exactly. So part of the experiment came down to ancient Atlantis, all right, and Lemuria. So when our vibration was
12,000 years ago?
So at 26,000
now?
But I don't know what this, I mean,
sure, there's like
it could have been 250,000
26,000 years ago.
Who knows, right?
Okay.
Numbers aren't my game.
I don't even know when World War I was, so I don't know why I'm asking about that depth of time.
But when we were at that point, we were given everything. So basically we were seen as the prophecy civilization. And so they're like, well, great, we're going to give them all knowledge, all information, all technology, all advancement. They're ready for it. Let's go. And we, as such a new civilization and species, we didn't know how to handle that level. We were kids. We were toddlers, right? So what we did is we took all of that technology and we were very irresponsible with it to the point where that sort of part of the experiment had to collapse. Okay. Atlantis had to basically fall for a reason because our technological advancement was getting out of hand.
Did they say that was done on purpose?
I mean, everything has contracts. Yeah. So based on the trajectory of how Atlantis went, there was one contract, one timeline, and another contract, another timeline. And one big word is responsibility. Back in Atlantis, we did not have the responsibility to appropriately utilize knowledge and technology. So we had to fall into the dark ages. We had to forget everything about who we were, why we came here, and where we came from in order to learn the responsibility of actually, yeah, there is a dark side to this universe and it's not pretty. And because of that, I'm gaining access to empathy that I didn't have for my fellow comrades, for my fellow humanitarian civilization. We needed that. We needed that experience because we didn't have that back in Lemurian Atlantis. So fast forward to now, we're coming back into this age of enlightenment, but now we've gone through, you know, the bullshit and we have a lot of tools and a lot of understanding and a lot of responsibility. Not to mention, there's a lot of Atlanteans who have chosen to reincarnate at this time in particular to really fight for responsibility. Right? To fight for, hey guys, we've been here before.
To encourage the responsibility of others.
We need to do this right. Yeah.
So what are we doing right and what are we doing wrong right now? I understand there's evil forces. I understand this is like a critical point and these 4 years are really important from 24 to 28. So right now, what are the good things that we're doing and what are the things that we're still doing wrong, generally speaking?
It all comes down to an individual's awareness of self and the collective, right? So if I say, what are we doing wrong right now as an individual? It's not having awareness that we're a part of a whole. It's been so much divide, especially here in the West, in America. It's been the us versus them mentality. But then you see these wars breaking out all over the world. It's like, guys, we're all human. And so that's the end goal. If we can all get together and understand that we are all human, and we all have basic needs and basic rights, and we can all get behind those basic needs and basic rights and create some sort of equality and unity here on this planet, right, without borders, then we're going in the right direction. Like these huge nonprofit organizations that are cleaning up the oceans of plastics. Whose responsibility is that? The oceans aren't a country. They're not owned by anyone. And yet here are these organizations saying, for the betterment of humanity as a whole. So I have hope that these younger generations are going to be raised in such a time where there is this extra awareness of how we're impacting the planet and how we're impacting others, not just environmentally, but also energetically with kindness. How are you treating others? How are you showing up for yourself and others? It's going to sound really silly, but the other day, I kind of made this goal for 2024 that I wanted to be a lot more conscious. Now already I've got like natural cleaning products and I eat organic and like, you know, kind of basic level conscious awareness for my own environment and then for the outside environment. But I was using just like a Ziploc plastic bag. And I had this moment of what am I going to do after I put whatever I'm putting in this plastic bag? What am I going to do with this bag? I'm going to throw it out. And people do this every day, multiple times a day with plastic that never goes away, that never disintegrates, that never biodegrades. And it was just this realization of how did I not ever know this? And same thing, like I just, so I've been giving a lot of my stuff away. And recently I gave all my pots and pans away. And
the nonstick stuff?
Yes! I had no idea that it was all toxic.
Yeah.
All toxic. And it's just like
it's going to take 100 years to get them cast irons all weathered in, but it's worth it.
We have to go back to this time of using glass containers and growing our own food and being self-sufficient. And it does start with an individual, and then hopefully that branches out to the rest of the collective. So it's about taking the individual responsibility and then hoping to educate others about that responsibility.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask about the difference between going out and being, doing good in your community. And I've learned way more about how to help others by learning how to help myself first.
Yep.
And it's a pain in the ass, because that's the work.
Yeah.
But that's when the real change happens, because what happens when you're tired and you're aggravated and you just don't, you got nothing left.
You got nothing left. You have nothing left to give, and you have nothing left to give yourself because you've depleted resources.
Yeah.
Give from a place of abundance. Make sure that your own cup is overflowing. And at that point in time, then it's a balance between 50-50. How much am I giving out and how much am I receiving? And that's a really big lesson for a lot of old souls and starseeds, because it's our mission to come to planet Earth with gusto and give and give and give and give. And that makes us feel so good to give so much. And then we burn out. And sometimes burnout looks like cancer or dis-ease, other disease in our body. And then you've got nothing to give, and you're forced to receive. So before you're forced to receive, at your lowest of low, learn that lesson, right? So, one of the best things is ask yourself, in what ways in my life can I receive? So for me, I receive by journaling. I receive by a glass of wine in the bathtub. I receive by taking walks or exercising. Those are all ways that fill me up. Being creative, those kind of things. So it's so important. It doesn't have to be, I don't know what other people would like, going out and buying a new purse or something, right? You want to think about where that mainstream consciousness is at. How do they receive? It's like, well, I don't know, gifts or more material shit. And it's not about that. It's about giving energy back to you and knowing that we do need a certain amount of downtime to recuperate from the craziness of the world.
I'm super fascinated by quantum physics. And I think I saw that, are you making a quantum physics class?
Yeah, I have one. Yeah, I have a workshop. Yeah.
And then my biggest question is, what is the nature of this reality?
Yeah.
So
oh, it gets weird.
Great. That's what we're here for. All the weird. So I wonder, is this holographic? Is it a simulation? Is it when I'm, look at a tree, what am I really looking at? When I look at myself, what am I really?
Right.
What the hell are we dealing with here?
Okay.
Sit back.
There's a lot of different concepts and themes, right? I would say the biggest one that I believe and understand, and the way that I understand this is not because I've read any quantum physics books, and I've actually sat down with a lot of physicists, and one of my friends is actually a rocket scientist at NASA, and she did my quantum, it's called the Quantum Human Workshop, and she's like, you were spot on about everything. Yeah. I'm a clairvoyant, right? Which means that I see energy, which also means that I can see things like the theory of wave particle duality. I believe that this reality is a simulation. And it's really tough to even just make that statement because everyone's going to perceive it a different way.
Yeah, sure.
Right? One of the first things that you think of when you think of a simulation, it's not real. It's not real.
Right.
And this reality is as real as the dreams that you were having last night. So when we leave this reality, we leave this incarnation, we're like, oh shit, that was just a dream. That was a pretty cool dream. And I learned a lot from it. But yeah, that was just an experience that I was having. Now, the craziest part is it's not just this planet that's a simulation. You could be a 12th dimensional extraterrestrial and leave your incarnation and go back to source and be like, oh shit, that was just a dream, right? So no matter what experience you're having in this entire universe, it's a momentary experience to help us learn and understand. So the only two things that we're ever doing as souls, no matter what incarnation you're living in, you could be a fish, you could be an alien, you could be a human, you could be a dog, you could be a tree, right? But no matter what incarnation, you are here to learn something new and clear the old energy, clear karma. So you're either bringing things into a cycle of clarity and neutrality. So you're neutralizing old energies and you're learning new things. A lot of people believe that karma just exists here on this planet, which is not the case. It exists everywhere. It's the law of cause and effect. It exists all throughout this universe. So I do believe that this is a simulation in the way that it's kind of like a video game. And there are 3 stages or 3 levels to the simulation, no matter what incarnation you're in.
Meaning incarnation on this planet? Or
anywhere.
Incarnation anywhere?
Anywhere in the universe, yeah. It is pretty widespread. So level 1 is you are the...
I somehow got very excited to win. To win. I know it's not the point, but sorry, keep going, level 1.
Okay, so level 1 is you are the character. Okay? So my character right now is Elizabeth April. That's my character. Just doing the thing, playing the role, right? Level 2 is you are the player. Okay? All of a sudden, you're able to step out of the character and you understand, oh, I'm playing this role.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm playing this character.
Yep.
It's you on the video games watching the TV screen.
It gives you the pause. It's like the observer of your life-ish.
Exactly.
That's how it feels to me when you
You're
say
not
that.
in the game. You're slightly out of it, aware of playing it, which is fantastic.
Like, right, you can see dynamics, you see patterns, you see triggers. It all has like a pause to it. You're like, oh, somebody must have just, you know, had an experience or...
And then that way, we don't take everything so personally.
Exactly.
Because this isn't it.
Okay, I feel confident I'm on level 2.
Okay, so...
Not all the time, but
level 3.
I know what level 2 feels like.
Yes, and there's only 3 levels.
Okay.
And what's so cool is, as such a, I don't want to say like a low-level civilization, but like, yeah, we're kind of like still very archaic, right, compared to the rest of the universe. What's so cool about this prophecy, about being this hybrid creation that we are, we get to go to level 3 here on planet Earth in the 3rd dimension.
So,
which is unheard of, right? And this is what makes us so special.
How come? Why can't they go there in other places? Like, why can't other civilizations do it?
Because we did not naturally evolve on planet Earth. We had help, right?
Yeah.
So that missing link was many, many different...
So many people that have talked about our DNA being spliced and all of a sudden we learned how to do something new and like we haven't changed for 200,000 years here or...
And then it's instant evolution. So, and because of that, we're able to have the perspective. And that's what the powers that were are the most scared of, is level 3, is us getting to level 3.
What's level 3?
So level 3 is being the programmer.
Oh, okay. Well, what would that entail?
That would entail you are aware of the character. You are aware of the player playing the character. You step out of the role of the player, and all of a sudden you understand, I get to create my own levels. You're not playing the levels. You're not winning a game. You're creating the game.
Yeah.
So that's the simulation. So, and I believe that this is going to be proven by quantum physics if it already hasn't been, right? So the double slit experiment essentially proves that as we observe the reality around us, it essentially loads around us.
Yeah.
So anything that I can't see behind me doesn't technically exist. It's in a wave form. So all of the particles that we know aren't actually solid, right? They're all just like atoms. All these particles are all just floating around.
Right. The man that discovered it when he woke up in the morning, somebody's telling the story, didn't want to put his feet on the ground because he was ready to fall through because he had proven that nothing is solid, actually.
Exactly.
It's just energy.
And so as we observe and we look behind us, it all forms.
Exactly.
So,
like a video game.
Like a video game.
Populates. You populate the view.
Exactly.
Based on your experience, whatever you've seen before.
Yep. Exactly. So with that understanding, right, comes things like manifestation. law of attraction, right? The placebo effect. These are all things like mind over matter, right? These are all concepts that actually come down to science and quantum physics and can be proven by real science, which is really crazy. And so what I tell people, like my best piece of advice is get your human foundations situated first. Yes, we're here to change the world and help the planet and bring unity to, disharmony. And I get all of that. And that's a great sentiment, right? But if you're coming at that mission from a fear-based place or a survival-based place or a fight or flight-based place, saying, I can't pay my rent next month, how can you change the world? Understand that you are the creator of your reality. Create the reality that lights you up the most, and then move into mission work, and then give back to the rest of the planet when you're at a place where everything's good. Because at that place, you are in the highest vibration. You are naturally in the vibration of abundance. Then you get to emit that vibration to the world, whether you choose to act on anything or not. You're already emitting it. You're already changing the frequency of the planet just by existing in a place where you're in abundance.
So how do we become that creator? Like, how do we, I know we'll skip over 2, let's go to 3. But like, I'm curious about maybe some things that you try and do or are aware of that create.
So there's so many ways to create and manifest. All it comes down to is focus. So if you're distracted,
like the world tries to do to you all the time.
Bingo, social media, all of that.
All of it. Politics.
If you're caught up in your own identity, if you're caught up in your own trauma because you haven't unpacked it, guess what? You won't be able to focus on what you want to create. That's what it comes down to, is focus. So the way that I visually see it is, and I love it because I play manifestation games all the time, right? So one manifestation game that I play often, do like a creating your own reality game, is I'll think of something bizarre, just totally bizarre, totally out there, and I'll try and bring it into my universe. So the other day, I was like, okay, you know what? A basketball. I have not touched, picked up, or even thought of a basketball in years, right? So I'm like, basketball. So anytime you think about something or focus on something, the way that I visually see it is one of those transparent pieces of paper, kind of like a sketch paper, right? So you think about a basketball. Great. So you've got this transparent kind of vision in your mind. You think about a basketball again. You put another transparent paper over top. It's getting a little bit more solid. And again, and again, and again. And what happens is you pull that thing into this density because you're bringing it in from a quantum place, a mind place, and
collecting waveform, almost like.
You're collecting waveform, exactly. And then just the other day, it took me 4 days to manifest this. I was walking with the stroller, I was walking my little boy, and this kid, I was like walking by these basketball courts, and this freaking basketball rolls right over to me.
Okay. I was going to say, if you just went by, but it rolled right in front of you.
And then
so
I picked up a
basketball.
And I tossed it back to him. And I'm like, haha, thank you. And I just do that for fun because it's fun to do. And it's like,
it's a reminder of how powerful it is.
Especially when you don't have an ego attachment to it.
Yeah.
So I always focus on something that I don't care about, that I don't need, because there's no blockage there.
Because you don't care, because you actually kind of let go. You kind of forget probably.
The attachment will bring it into a lower density, which is harder to manifest. Way back in the day when I was really working with like quantum physics and different timelines, and like, man, it gets really, really wild. And I was like bringing different timelines in by the same method of just focusing on it. So I'm like, I want a free cup of coffee. That's what I want. I want a free cup of coffee, whatever. It was like probably 2 weeks after I was like really focused on this, and I wrote it down, and I was like, and I didn't really care about having a free cup of coffee. I just wanted to manifest it. So I'm in line at a coffee shop, and this like older man in front of me starts chatting me up, and I'm like, oh, great. I'm thinking, he's going to buy me this like free cup of coffee, this small cup of coffee, whatever. And so he goes up. No, he didn't. He just got his own thing. I got my own thing. So I got a small cup of coffee. It was like $1.13. I shit you not. I walk out of the coffee shop, and on the ground in front of me is this pile of change. Now, I don't usually pay attention to those things or like pick them up, but I picked up the change. And as I did, I counted it. Guess what?
It's $1.13.
$1.13 exactly. So the other thing is it may come to you in ways that are unexpected.
Sure.
That was my free cup of coffee.
Sure.
I had the cup of coffee in hand.
Well, you were thinking about getting the free coffee. Then you let go of the free cup of coffee. Ding, ding, ding.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the hardest. I feel like a lot of things are simple, but difficult.
Yes.
Like it's simple to go, I want this, but it's difficult to not think about it then.
Yeah.
But that is part of the magic with the way energy works. I took a big mushroom journey. I guess it was probably almost 2 years, year and a half ago or so. It was big, 5 grams. It was a guided journey.
Wow.
And when I was in that space, the first thing I dropped into was a waveform. And I was like, I knew I wasn't real.
Wow.
And I was like, how am I ever going to be human again? That's what I thought. How am I ever going to be human again? Because I know it's not real.
Yep.
And that all of the things that we like, our experiences are waveforms interacting with us. Yep. They're like passing by. Sometimes they're vibing with us. Sometimes they're hitting us. Sometimes they get out of they're out of sync.
Yep.
It's just an experience, whether it's tasting a mango or, being cold or whatever. Like they're all just waveform experiences.
Yes.
And so I thought, oh, wow, I'm cold because when I take mushrooms, I can get very cold. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I know it's not real. So, and then the mushrooms were like, no, it's fine. This is the experience you're having. Cover yourself up, warm up. Like it's okay to feel what you're feeling. That is what this is an experience. Yes. It's not meant to not be real.
If you were meant to be a waveform, you wouldn't be a human.
Right.
I remind myself that all the time. And I'm like, oh man, I got to deal with this other human thing. It's like, hey, you signed up for this, But one of the really key points in what you were talking about, all waveforms interacting, like it's pretty immense, right? Especially as an empath. This is why we need downtime, is because we're very sensitive to everyone we interact with. So this cup of water, for example, I'm interacting with it, but it's at a pretty neutral place, right? I could charge the water by setting an intention with it or adding a crystal to it. You and I are connecting right now. And what's happening when you connect with people is you create cords. Okay, so you get entangled. I get entangled by this water glass, but because it's at a neutral energy, it doesn't affect me. Exactly. It doesn't affect me. But because you have your own reality and creation of your reality, our entanglement is going to need a cord cutting. So this is why, the energetic responsibility that we need to have on a day-to-day basis just to stay sane is to cut cords constantly.
I don't do any of that.
It's so important.
Shit.
So other things that can clear energy, water, so taking baths, being in hot tubs, swimming, will all clear energy. Being in the sun will clear energy. Being in full moon light will clear energy. Being around crystals can clear energy. Even just taking a shower will clear energy. When I did one-on-one sessions all the time, what I would do is I'd wash my hands in between each session. It would clear my energy. You could visualize cutting cords as well. That could clear energy. So I feel... So especially in a place like Vegas and you're on the strip or you're in a casino, even eye contact with people can create entanglements. Yeah. So I'm clearing that energy. Yeah. And one of the biggest lessons I learned from having a child is, he was a newborn and, he was crying and I felt his anxiety. And so we were both just a kind of a ball of stress and energy. And I'm like, oh, I can't help you if I'm feeling you. So I'm going to cut cords with you. And then all of a sudden, just like that, I'm like, oh, I no longer feel what he's feeling. So then I can help him not feel that way.
Right, because you're not in it too.
I'm not in it too. Right? So it's energetic responsibility is so important when we go into these higher vibrations, because we're not just feeling the physical reality around us. We're beginning, all of us, to feel the energetic reality around us too.
Gives you a better orientation for what's really going on, so you're not in it, so you're able to actually be an observer of the energy a little bit more. Exactly. Right? So you can deal with it correctly. An
observer of the physical reality a little bit more too, because you're like, oh, there's a lot going on behind the scenes that no one is saying.
It makes me think of something that's been on my mind a little bit lately, which is, basically the idea of staying true to the feelings that you're getting in your body and intuition and micro expressions and different things, and how, and this is appropriate, I thought it was a good question for you having a new child, is I wonder what the effect is of, let's say he says, "Mommy, are you okay?" And you're like, "I'm fine," but you're not.
Right.
And you like continuously, you're trying to protect them, right? Because it's not their problem, but you're continually chipping away at their intuition and their sensitivities.
Yeah.
So I'm curious your thoughts about that with having a child and like the white lies that you would tell to protect them and the negative effect that might have on their real intuition and psychic abilities to really sense what's going on.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. So this is where me and my wife differ a little bit.
Oh.
I'm of the mindset to be as honest as possible right from the beginning. Like, no white lies. Like, you know what? Mommy's having a really rough day. And what I'm going to do for myself in this moment is take a walk. Do you want to take a walk with mommy? That's going to make me feel better. So if our children, the next generation, can observe how we're dealing with things in an open, communicative, responsible, emotionally intelligent way, then hopefully they do that too. So one of the things, and my wife agrees on that point, but one of the things that we don't agree on, and I think I might concede on this, but she's like, I want him to believe in Santa Claus. And so
she's a clear and blatant lie.
For me, it's like, how can I teach my son about aliens in the sky and fairies in the forest and say all of those things are real? And Santa Claus is too, but that's not real. So I'm of the mindset of, there was a Saint Nicholas who was an actual guy who gave shoes and things to homeless and poor individuals back in the day. And we celebrate him, and you know what I mean? So I just be real about it rather than I just can't get around telling a truth like aliens and having him really believe that and believe that we're saying that that is the truth. And then also at the saying
this is real too.
This is also
knowing
real.
It's not.
Yeah. So
I just wonder if it really messes with their ability to take the information that's coming from the field and their intuition versus what someone says.
Right.
You're easier to get manipulated then. You're easier to get your heart broken. You're easier to get taken advantage of in business because now you're just saying the words and somebody's like, you're doing a great job. And then you get fired the next day.
Exactly.
It's like you need to be able to read the energy.
Yeah. And
they're really good at it. And like they're super sensitive at first.
They're so sensitive. And so, if my abilities at a young age were handled that way in a very open and honest way, who knows where I would be right now. And I know that I had to have kind of that journey of myself of shutting things down and opening them up and feeling scared because this is the world that we live in, right? I was introduced to if I was born now, it's like, great, my abilities could have been really, protected. Yeah. But I had to really experience that not everyone's going to believe you. Like, not everyone's going to get it. And my mom said at a young age, and I love her and she's my biggest fan. So I say this with that caveat. But, at a young age, she was scared of me seeing ghosts and spirits. So I would tell her that there was like, hey, there's a little girl in that corner. And she would be freaked out. So she told me, oh, it's not real. And you've been just watching too many scary movies, and which wasn't the case. And then I didn't believe in myself and what I was doing. I didn't have the tools. No one gave me the tools to be able to navigate that. Yeah. Right. Which once again, was all contracted. Yeah. But I do want to give my children the tools, Because
the question is like, what's in service to our highest timeline, not only as individuals, but as a collective?
I think honesty. It's just being super truthful and super honest with children because they know, like you said, you lie and then it messes up their own sort of ability to navigate. And they're like, oh, okay, well then I must be wrong. And then they grow up with this understanding of I'm wrong in what I'm feeling.
I'm wrong what I'm feeling. I'm just going to listen to what you say.
Exactly. And that's how you program
a generation. We all lie a lot. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. What do you think about Neuralink? Having that just booted up. Somebody just, what would it take to be the first one to go, yeah, me?
Right.
It'd take like terminal something for me to go, I got about a month left. Let's give this a whirl.
Right.
Like, I wonder about the person that said yes.
Yeah, so I actually just finished reading the Elon Musk autobiography, which was really fascinating.
Interesting.
Just because I wanted to understand him a little bit more. I mean, I think that he is one of the greatest minds of our generation, like without a doubt. He's a Da Vinci of our generation, right? Yeah. So is he good or bad? You know what I mean? Like
I've thought that many times. Like he's the one that's ushered in a lot of this more AI version stuff. Even ChatGPT was something he was involved in, which then got out of because of the way it went. But
PayPal,
but he's been in there, and then it's like he's somewhere between. So like he's like either an angel or the devil, and I can't quite tell, right?
Yeah. So I mean, one of his really big, and it's interesting because the author of this autobiography, he's done like, you know, the president's autobiography. So he's like a very reputable author. And what he did was he followed Elon around for like 2 years or something so he was in the meetings, like verbatim, word for word. Like it wasn't just what Elon was telling him, he was there.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really fascinating. And one of the things that Elon's always been really concerned with is AI getting out of hand. So that's why he wanted to usher in AI to be able to navigate it himself.
Oh, so he could like keep the finger on the dial of how
exactly right. So that's where he's coming from, and that's the biggest question: is do we trust him? And I do think that he's done so much for the planet, more than a lot of individuals are doing right now, which is really impressive. And I think that I haven't been able to get a solid read on which side he's on. And I think that in a lot of ways, because he is on the spectrum and he is Asperger's, he is socially, you know, the way that he's been able to get ahead is he really does push people, and he doesn't really understand those social interactions. And that can be misinterpreted as he's a really bad guy because of the Twitter firings and all of that, right? It's like, man, that's not the way I would go about doing it. And that's the way he did it. But he's done that every single business he's ever taken over. He's fired pretty much everyone, and he's gotten the reins on it. So I think it's undecided right now as far as where he sits. And as far as Neuralink, I'll say this. So I've had a lot of past life regressions, off planet. So I've seen a lot of interdimensional lifetimes, all right? So I know at least a very small part of the technology that they have up there. So 2 things I want to make as a statement. One is AI, and we're talking like sentient robots, that kind of AI, because there's a lot of different kinds of AI right now.
But sentient.
We're talking sentient robots exist all over the universe, and they've existed all over the universe for probably billions of years. Okay? That's nothing new. So if everyone up there has been able to handle that,
deal with it
amicably, we can do that here.
Okay.
And we're talking sentient robots, or sentient AI. So that's one thing. The second thing is one of the greatest technologies that they have up there that is like an iPhone to us, for example, is all of their technology is linked to their consciousness. So one of the things that I've seen is, you know, an interdimensional being at a command center, and this being was flying a ship by touching their fingers to this pad, And so, you know, the being says, go right, the ship goes right. The being says, go left, the ship goes left.
Says or thinks?
Thinks, right? And so that's normal. Like, that's like, you know, I've always...
Which is like Neuralink.
Exactly. So I've always felt here, like, all technology is so behind. It's so
slow,
unintuitive.
There's so much stuff. Our whole 3D of timeline, point A to point B. It's like when you flip it and, you know, things need to be more instant. Even just like when you get downloads, it comes in that packed thought form that is so much more dense and quick.
2 minutes in time, but it's 45 minutes to explain, or 2 hours to explain, or whatever. So, and I do believe that the internet is another dimension. So it's like a whole other conversation, but think about it, right?
Yeah.
You're online, space and time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Space. You're talking to someone in Germany.
Yeah.
You're doing a lecture and, you know, people in Sweden are watching you or whatever, right? And time doesn't exist because you're literally on this platform.
All the information is existing at the same time.
Day, night, doesn't matter, right? You're reaching the world. So you're hopping through space, you're hopping through time. on the internet.
Yeah.
So I think that these things all of the seeds are planted. I think that that's where we're going. And even like back in the day, like a couple years ago when everyone was really worried about like the 5G towers and people were burning them down, I was concerned too. I mean, I am truly concerned about a lot of things on planet Earth. And so when I asked the Galactic Federation about these 5G towers, I said, I'm really concerned. Like, don't you think this radiation is really harmful? Mm-hmm. And they said, absolutely, the radiation is harmful. But they said, what do you think the technology is that we have on our ships? The radiation is 10 times on the ships worse.
Where they find crash landings or like crop circles, the radiation is super high.
Exactly. And so the Galactic Federation said, it's not about reversing the technology and not allowing the technology on your planet. It's about creating solutions to navigate around the problems that technology creates, which is what they've done. So they have suits, they have their space suits that are radiation protections. And I don't know if you've seen, but there's a lot of clothing companies that are cropping up.
Anti-radiation.
Anti-radiation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And, a friend of mine is starting, believe it or not, a paint company that has
paint the houses with anti-radiation.
Yeah, shungite
inside the walls.
Yeah, crystals, shungite. I mean,
I have
all of that.
EMF reducers in my house. I have like three different ones spread out throughout the house.
Organite, all of that. Yeah,
and crystals and all kinds of stuff.
Yep, exactly. So that's it. It's not about being scared of technology and advancement. It's about doing it the right way with responsibility and awareness, and then finding solutions that are going to help the planet. Yeah. Because that's how we get to a space civilization, a galactic civilization, right? Like once cosmic disclosure happens, then we can choose as a humanity, as a society, do we want to join the Galactic Federation? Do we believe that everyone in the universe deserves unity and equality? And if the answer is yes, then we get to share.
We gotta start with our planet, though.
All of their technology, right? So we get to then trade with the rest of the universe once we're ready to do that. And I think Elon is a really good example of someone who is getting us to that point where we then have the technology where we're not so far behind once disclosure really happens and we choose to join.
So then what's the path as we go along? So we join, like where do we go as an energy on our full evolution through the universe, through time, go back to source, singularity, break out again? Like where do we?
It's kind of everything you just mentioned. Yeah. So this is one of my biggest questions, the evolution of a soul, right? Through the universe. So, when I first started channeling, this was my big, please tell me, how does it all work? What's the point, right? And so in short, essentially what I've channeled is that there's 12 different dimensions, which are just different frequency levels, like radio stations. And in each dimension, you can have a different experience, and each experience brings you more knowledge, information, tools, because you're closer to source. You're just in a higher vibration, so your experience is different.
There's more information in the density.
My experience right now is I make food and I eat the food and I pay my bills, and like it's a very like physical, right? Yes. And so you get a little bit more non-physical and higher dimensions, and that's what we're doing here. We're getting into a higher dimension, so things are getting weird. So if you want to talk about it, the easiest way possible is in a linear fashion. So you go to dimension 1 as a soul, and you learn everything that limited dimension has to offer you. You learn all of the lessons that dimension has to offer. Then you move on. You graduate, yay, to dimension 2. All right, great. You learn all the lessons, everything from all the limitations. Say dimension 2 is all about trees. You're just plants. You're just plants, and you grow, and like that's very limited, and you have sun, and and then you die, and then you move on, right? And dimension 3, and here we are at 3rd dimension, and all the way to 12th dimension. So you learn everything that this universe has to offer you in an infinite number of different incarnations. You learn the lessons, you clear the other things that you've learned, which is the karma, right? The cause and effect. And then you get to the end. Awesome. You're now graduating the 12th dimension. You have a choice. Choice is this. You can either go back to source, okay? Whatever the energy, all that is. You go back to source and you rejoin, and you just exist as that all-knowing, all-sentient, sort of omnipotent thing. Or, other choice, is you get to break off from this universe and you get to start your own universe as your own source. And what do you do when you start your own universe as your own source and you have all knowledge, all wisdom, all access to everything, and you're just in the light and you get bored. When you have everything, what do? I wonder what going back to level 1. Like, I don't know if you've ever played video games, right? But you're like, for me, I was obsessed with The Sims, right? Because it is like a version of this, it is a simulation. It's like, oh my God. And then you get to play Sims in The Sims and you're like, oh my God, like, and it's pretty wild. And so I always used to use the cheat codes to get all the money so I could have all the things that I wanted to. And then I'm like, this is boring. I want to do a job because I'm actually bored in having all the things that I want to have.
Yeah.
So let's try a different experience. Let's try a different. And this is what you can do as your own universe. You don't just exist in the all. You want to experience the nothing. Yeah. And then you just fucking restart it all over again.
Have you ever seen The Good Place?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
The Good Place kind of tells you this at the end of the whole thing where so the point is they didn't actually go to the good place. Right. Actually, like a demon made a pseudo good place, but it wasn't. It was actually not the good place. Yeah. And then he ended up trying to he kind of turned into a good guy, even though he's a demon. And he was like, let's test them. I think they can really learn and improve. And anyway, so they finally get to the good place. And they get to the good place and there's all these like iconic figures throughout history that are there and they're like zombies like nothing. Because in the good place, you have everything as soon as you want it.
Yes.
And so they were not inspired. Everything was actually boring. There was no meaning to anything. Yes. So they gave them this door they could walk through, this window essentially. And when they passed through, they could then go into the ethers and back to source and they could leave. They could leave the good place. Yeah. And once they knew that they could leave, it gave meaning to all the experiences. And they all had these lists of all these things that they wanted to do. And then their soul just knew they were completed. Yeah. And they were like, it's my time. Wow. And they went through the door and disappeared into the ethers and they were gone, but they could leave. And it was only because they could, there was a possibility they had none of it anymore, that some of it, that it all made more meaning to them. Yes. It was all more meaningful.
And one thing about being a parent is I want Bodhi to experience adversity. Yeah. I want him to experience challenge. I want him to experience failing. And it's tough because as a parent, you want to you want to
protect them from all that.
Yeah, protect them from all that.
Let me just teach you the lesson. It took me a while to learn and I cried a lot about.
Right, exactly. But that's not how they learn it, right? So one of the biggest things that I tell other parents is, and I've actually said this for a while, long before I was ever one myself, being a parent isn't about being your child's friend. It's about teaching your child. It's not about having your child like you. Yeah. It's about teaching your child how to be a human. Yeah. And being human has a lot of adversity to it. Yeah. And if they don't get to experience that and know that they can get through that at a young age, they're going to be hit with a lot of hard stuff at an older age, right?
Accountability. That's what you talked so much about earlier, is accountability, right? It's the inner work so that they can then treat others the way they treat themselves, with compassion, with work ethic, with integrity, with peace of mind, boundaries, all of those things. Then they can reflect that back to other people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Your workshop. You're working on doing these 2-day events. So tell me what kind of curriculum you want to have at these 2-day events for people.
Yeah, so this is kind of my next big endeavor. And eventually I want to have a couple of these per year. And it's intensive, right? Like, I think you mentioned even before we hopped on, like, I'm sick of Zoom. Like, me too. Like, and
that's why we're finally sitting down together, because the last time we didn't do it like this. And I was like, I will wait until I can sit down with you again. I'm so sick of this block in front of me. So
yeah. And like, even me on YouTube, it's like my version of retiring is never having to show my face online again. I just want to write books and do like intensive, workshops, right? And be with people because it's just like, it's just not the same, right? Like, you want to feel that energy and create that change there. So moving forward, I'm going to have these workshops. Right now it's called Galactic Gathering. And so the first part of the workshop is all about just clearing out the old, cutting the cords, releasing the energies that no longer serve us. We're going to do some deep diving into some past lifetimes, learning lessons, clearing karma, all of that stuff. And then the second day is all about understanding your psychic abilities. So what I love about these workshops is I'm not teaching anyone knowledge and information. I am holding space for people to gain access to that knowledge and information themselves, right? Like I'm here to teach teachers. I'm not here to teach students. And this is what it's all about for me, is like leading the way. Like I want these to be life-changing for people. I want them in 10 years from now be like, that was what kicked it all off for me, you know? And so I also want to help people like reconnect with their cosmic selves as well. Like, who were you up there, and understanding the gifts that we have from there and that we can bring here. So it's going to be a lot of like kind of psychic activation, DNA activation, cosmic connections. And that's more of the workshop, the intensives. And then I've got about 3 books, that are,
you're mad.
It's crazy.
One's already a pain in the ass.
So I'm working on one book that's really like high level. It's essentially just, the working title right now is Cosmic Conversations. So it's conversations with interdimensional beings about everything, about the planet, about the universe, about their position, how they even got into the position that they're in within the Galactic Federation. So it's a really like intimate, it's like this. It's an intimate deep dive.
Is it almost like a Q&A kind of
It's a
format?
Q&A. It is just a question and answer. And so I'm just I'm just typing out. I mean, it's like the easiest book I've ever had to write.
You're literally,
I'm not thinking about
it. You're just like question and an answer, and there's nothing audio, like there's nothing coming out. You're just
exactly. So
it's actually really fun too, right?
It's so much fun,
and I get getting information.
Yeah, I get to.
You're learning too. Like
I'm just a curious human, like asking these questions, and I'm having so much fun doing it.
Yeah.
So that's basically written, and I think I'm going to self-publish that because it's not really for a traditional publisher. Like I really can't imagine any like.
This feels like a Dolores Cannon book.
I don't know.
Exactly. Go to their publisher.
Yeah. So that's.
I mean, I know she's dead.
That's one.
She's passed, but.
And then I'm working on more of like a mainstream series, and it's going to be, the series is called like the Starseed Manual. And so it's how to essentially exist on planet Earth as a highly sensitive individual, as an old soul, and live your best life. So a lot of the tools that we talked about here today, cutting cords. And so the first book of the series is going to be like Matrix versus Mission, right? How do we exist here in the Matrix while we also pursue our mission work? And giving people the tools to do that. And even like a whole book on anxiety. How do we navigate anxiety? And what is it really?
What is it really? God,
you know?
I've asked that to so many psychologists.
And that is truly a whole book in itself of tools. So I want to give people the gift of these tools so that they have that within their toolbox to feel empowered to go about living their best life, right? In their highest potential.
Totally.
So those are my big projects. And I'm really excited about that.
Those all sound very interesting. And it's like page turner, and love the deep dive work and the intensives that you want to do. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this because it's a new one for me, and I don't know what to do with it. And I've been always very conflicted as to whether or not it's something I should just like act as if it's not there because it's drama and negativity, distraction, or that's how it's felt. Or if there's actually something that you're supposed to do, like am I complicit by not participating and doing what I can? And that's with politics. And since it's like we're coming into a year and it's going to be, it feels like it's going to be like the craziest year for it. And I feel like, I've been inspired or called. It's truly how I feel, called to dive into it and at least start interviewing people in the political realm. Okay. Does this matter? Does this election matter that much within the scope of our planet and what we're doing? Or is this just kind of another distraction? One, in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. Because no matter what, planet Earth is on a trajectory, and these are all just puppets. Everyone's just a puppet. I mean, even we're just puppets, right? So the simulation theory, right? It's just like, it doesn't really matter. We're on a trajectory. The prophecy is going to be realized no matter what.
on the other hand, because politics matters to the people right now in this moment, and hopefully one day it won't as much, because it only matters because it's so polarizing, right? And people are feeding into that.
Said.
But because it matters to the people, and because you can be such a great voice of, and I don't want to say reason because this isn't your world, but I want to say you can be a very good voice of presenting information objectively, a voice of neutrality, which is what we need in these times of turmoil and polarity. So because it matters to the people, it matters. It does matter. It depends on what level are you looking at when you're considering aspects of this reality. So I've battled with the exact same question of, do I dive into it? Do I care? And I have not been inspired, but I do feel obligated, would be kind of where I'm coming at it from, to be a voice of neutrality for people, to talk about very polarizing things in a neutral way, to say, we can exist in this matrix. We can exist in polarity. We can be aware of all of the pieces of the puzzle and be aware of them objectively without having to take sides and blame everyone else.
Exactly. Level 2, be aware of the differences and go, cool.
So I battle with this often. Do I ignore these things that are happening and just move on with my great 5D life?
And isn't that, maybe that's the right thing, because the less you feed into it, the less it's real. It's almost like adding to you're confirming and building it up through energy of thought.
But if you bring awareness to it in a neutral way, then you help other people bring neutrality to it too.
Make it neutral then.
Exactly. And there's not enough people doing that. Yeah. The people who are bringing awareness to it are bringing a lot of polarity to the awareness. Yeah. So as long as you go into those interviews and if you feel inspired, follow that inspiration, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, that's
totally like being called. All I said was, I love America. And people were like, we hate you. And I'm like, oh, really? Now I'm pissed.
Yeah. And you're going to get that. You're going to get all sides, right? I posted a picture of my wife and I celebrating our 6 years together, and I lost 1,000 followers because of it, because I'm apparently a part of some sort of conspiracy of the LGBTQ agenda, right? And it's a good riddance to those people, because that's not who I am, right? So it's that energy, right? And I think that if you continue to go into these really polarizing moments with the neutrality rather than the fight mentality, then you can really help people with that perspective. We need that. We need a lot of that. So I encourage you to keep going with it and just have the intention that you're going to really bring information to the awareness of others, but not in a polarized fashion.
Right. I love that. That's the best way I've heard it encouraged and described, and the best perspective I could have as to what kind of energy to bring into it.
And if we ignore the things that are happening in the world, then we're living our best life because we're unaffected by it. But then how are we helping to create positive change in the world if we're just like, all right, cool, you're in turmoil, bye, peace. I'm not affected by it. Teach people to not be affected by it.
Right. I feel like almost one of like a simple thing that seems obvious to me is like, why do we even have partisan politics? Like, why don't we just listen to someone talk about what they want to do with the country and go, I like you or you, instead of, you know what I mean?
No.
I mean, we've got people that are become Democrats to Republicans, Democrats to independents. Like, oh, so now you're not actually that? Like, oh, you know what I mean? It's just, it's just a way we use to divide.
Yes.
You know? It just seems silly to me. So I'm probably going to have a lot of silly questions, but maybe those silly questions will be very interesting conversations, because they're not ones that the conditioned people have been used to asking or even thinking about, right?
Exactly. Okay. And that can be so helpful.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.